All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is Networks Live on Demand. I'm Liz Jones, the Blue Star Family Solutions Manager, and we are excited to bring to you for the second time FlexJobs with Brie Reynolds. Brie has been doing this for, geez, how long have you been doing this? A couple of years? A
A few
while.
years, yeah, a few years.
So she is the expert on flexible and remote jobs that go with you. If you have questions for Bree and you are joining us via the Zoom platform, you can either ask them in the Q&A box and I'll bring them forward to her, or you can ask them in the chat feature and I'll also read those out loud for her. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can put your questions in the comments below and I will make sure that I get them to Bree. So with that, I will turn it over to Bree.
All right. Well, thank you all. Thanks, Liz, and everybody who's here today for having me. And if you see my eyes kind of darting around, I've got the Zoom chat over here, and I've got the slides over here, and my camera's here, so that's why. But I'm really excited to be here today. As Liz said, I love talking about flexible jobs and remote jobs and just jobs that you can actually take with you. I'm not a military spouse myself, but I have moved quite a lot in the last 10 years or so. To 4 different states over the course of those years. And I've been able to take the same job with me because it's remote and flexible. And I also have a very flexible employer who understands that keeping an employee throughout those moves can be a really helpful thing, not just for them, but for the company. So it's also, FlexJobs, we kind of walk the walk, I guess, when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I really understand the value of a job that can travel with you. And help you maintain either your career or just maintain a foothold in the workforce, even if it's not specifically career related. There are just so many things that you can do nowadays that will help you continue working while you are moving around. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just a little bit about FlexJobs before I get started into the bulk of the presentation. So we celebrated our 10th anniversary in 2017. We're a job search website. We list pre-screened, telecommuting, flexible schedule, part-time, and freelance jobs. Essentially anything that is flexible that takes you out of that traditional 9-to-5 in-office job. And we have jobs in the US, in Canada, worldwide. We're mainly US based. I would say the bulk of our jobs are in the US or for people residing in the US, but we do have jobs across the world as well. And we've helped over 3 million job seekers since we were founded back in 2007. I've been with FlexJobs since 2010 and have moved a lot, like I said, since then. So I totally get this flexible job thing. And also in that time, we have researched over 49,000 companies to find flexible and remote jobs. So we really have a good handle on who's offering this type of work, what the work actually is, what are the most common types of jobs you can do from home and do flexibly. And so we think it's a pretty good value. So we're also a membership site, which means it's a little bit different than most job boards. Essentially, instead of having the employers pay to post their jobs, we flipped that. So we are a subscription service for job seekers. And that means that we don't have to take money from employers to post their jobs or from advertisers or from anyone else. Essentially, we are totally focused on the job seeker and what would be best for them. And to do that, we are a subscription model. So for a small fee, you get access to our database of really good, clean, professional level jobs, no ads, no scams, no commission only jobs. It's really just a nice, simple database to research for jobs that offer flexibility. And we also offer a discount too, which I'll talk about at the end of the presentation for everybody here. I've been a career specialist since 2004. I started in college career advising. I love helping people with their careers, figuring out jobs that will fit their lives, whether you're traveling or not, even if you just want to stay put in one place, but you want a job with flexibility. And I really like this work, so I'm very happy to be talking to you all today. I'm also very pregnant, so if you hear me trying to catch my breath every now and then, it's just that time. I'm due next week, actually, so that time of the cycle when I can't breathe most of the time. So apologies for the huffing and puffing that might go on. But let's talk about the flexible job market. So first of all, I wanted to just define what is a flexible job, because I will be using that phrase a lot. And it's important that we're all kind of on the same page about it. So we look at schedule flexibility in 4 different ways. The first would be scheduling. So you could have a flexible schedule or an alternative schedule where you're working outside of traditional office hours. You could also have a flexible job in terms of location. So this is probably what a lot of people are interested in here today, is being able to work remotely or work from home or telecommute. All of those words essentially mean the same thing, being able to work from your home instead of in an office. There's also the status of the job to consider. Freelance jobs are inherently flexible because usually freelancers have a lot more control over when, where, how they're working. Employee jobs can also be flexible, and we see a good number of both freelance and employee-based jobs on the site. Employee jobs, we just look for some other type of flexibility. So you could be an employee, but you're working part-time or you're working from home or something like that. And then your hours. Part-time jobs, we would say, are inherently flexible also because you're working a reduced schedule, as long as that's what you're looking for. And then full-time is the same as kind of an employee job. You can be full-time but still have a flexible job as long as there's some other type of flexibility there. But the bottom line, as I said, is any type of job that's outside of that 9-to-5 in-office structure is something that we would consider potentially flexible. So that, when I say flexible job, I mean all those different types of flexibility. And if I'm talking about a specific type, I will mention that particular type when I am talking. So just some trends in flexible work to show you how much this is growing over the last 10 years or so. This is all US-based data, so it's the US workforce that we took a look at. And across the board, whether it's telecommuting, freelancing, flexible schedules, everything has grown. The only one that stayed fairly consistent, and it goes up and down depending on the year, is part-time work. That one has stayed mostly consistent. But these 3 have really skyrocketed over the last 10 years. So there are a lot more people who are telecommuting, having flexibility in their schedule, and freelancing. And a lot of you might have experienced one or all of these types of flexibility in your past careers. So it's definitely something that is on the rise. At the next couple slides, I wanted to point out some of the information that we have about the most common career fields for flexible jobs, companies that are hiring, and then job titles also, just because I wanted to make sure we all have a good idea of what's being hired and where the jobs are when it comes to flexible jobs. So these are the top career fields. This is based on the number of jobs being posted in each career field. So out of 55 career fields that we see at FlexJobs, we find that these top 20 have the most job opportunities being posted to them. But what you can see here is that there's a huge variety. It's not typically it's not the typical types of jobs that you think of when you think of flexible jobs. So I think everybody thinks of computer and IT and software development and customer service and like writing and editing. Those kind of are the big ones that just pops into your mind when you think of flexible jobs. And those are definitely represented. But what you can see is there is so much more opportunity in other career fields too. So I always like to point this out because hopefully it gets some ideas churning in your mind about what you might be able to do. Maybe it helps you understand that what you do as a profession can be done flexibly. Or if you're looking at this list and you don't see your particular career field listed here, it doesn't mean that there's no flexible work out there for you. It just means that it's not in the top 20. So like I said, we have 55 career fields that we look at, and there's flexible jobs in all of them. So these just tend to have the most year over year. So these are the top companies hiring, and this is the top 20, I believe I pulled out of the 49,000 companies in our database. So again, it's not really, the whole scope, but I thought it's interesting to see which companies out of 49,000 are posting the most flexible jobs. And this is over the last 2 years. And so again, you can see that there's a lot of variety. They kind of match those career fields we were just looking at. But also there are a lot of very well-established, well-known large companies. And I think that's surprising for some people because typically with a flexible job or the ability to work from home or freelance, people think of smaller companies, maybe startups, and not necessarily big traditional types of companies. But those are really companies that are posting a lot of flexible jobs. So you've got companies from healthcare and telecommunications, travel, computer and IT, of course, all over the place. So again, just to show you some of the variety and kind of get your mind churning. And hopefully give you a sense that there is opportunity out there and you might not know where it is just yet. So doing some research and figuring out where that opportunity is can be really helpful. And then I also wanted to touch on specifically remote job titles, because I know that for this group and for anyone that we survey, when we ask them what type of flexibility would be most beneficial or would they most want, remote work is number one by a long shot every single time. Everybody wants to work from home. And so these are the most common remote job titles that we see out there. And I wanted to point these out because it's a very highly desired type of flexible work arrangement. But again, you can see that this sort of mirrors the flexible career fields that we looked at before. The type of work being done remotely is very wide ranging now. I think people still sometimes think of those more stereotypical types of jobs when they think of what can be done remotely, but really so many different things can be done remotely. Not on this list, it wasn't the most common, but I've even seen remote job titles for golf instructors. So actually teaching people, swings and things like that from home. And yeah, and a remote neurosurgeon was probably the craziest one that I've seen. But you do the surgery in a surgery center, but all of the follow-up and the analysis and all of that you get to do from home. So yeah, so there's really something out there for everybody when it comes to remote work. Okay, so now that we've got a sort of a lay of the land of the flexible job market, I wanted to talk about how to find jobs and companies that are actually hiring. How can you get out there and start searching? So the first thing I'll talk about is finding flexible job listings. Of course, there's FlexJobs. I already talked about that a lot. But I would recommend wherever you're searching online to try to find smaller job search websites rather than those huge job boards that are out there. For some people, those work perfectly well. But for a lot of people, they can be really overwhelming. They have millions of listings. They're not necessarily intuitively set up. If you're looking for flexible work in particular, it can be really hard to find that type of work on a really big job site. And it also, companies kind of hide their flexibility a little bit. So if you're searching on a more traditional site, you're going to find traditional listings and they're not necessarily going to say whether they are remote or flexible in some way. Smaller job boards, on the other hand, a lot of them tailor to a particular career field or to a type of flexibility, and it helps you be able to search faster. You're not going to get as many listings, but you don't need as many listings. You don't need millions of listings. You need a few dozen that are really geared towards your particular interests. So there's a couple lists here that I would highly recommend looking at. Proven.com has a list of the 100 plus job boards for job seekers and recruiters, and they just updated it, I think, in February, so it's pretty current. And they, I believe, divide it by career field. So depending on the type of work that you're interested in doing, you could find websites that cater to that particular type of job and look for flexibility within those listings. The other one is skillcrush.com, has a really great list of the 25 plus best sites for finding remote work. So if you're interested in working remotely, that's a great list to check out. There are some really good sites on there, and I'm happy to say FlexJobs and our sister site Remote Co are both listed on there. And then Forbes, I think this was the end of last year, put out a list of the 79 websites to get freelance jobs fast. So if you're looking for freelance or project-based work, that's a really good list also. And it's divided by career field and the type of work that you want to do. It just helps you pinpoint things a little bit faster and not spend so much time sifting through listings. The other thing I would recommend is industry or professional associations. So for your particular type of work or the work you want to get into, finding the professional associations that cater to that particular career field and joining those can be really beneficial for a couple reasons. One, they always have job boards, most of them anyway. So you're going to get listings that are very tailored to what you want to do. But then also the networking opportunities are really big in those things. They do free webinars, or free if you're a member. You probably have to pay to be a member, but then they're free for you. So they do webinars, they do remote networking events and things like that. So you can actually meet other people who are working potentially the way that you want to work. And I always recommend when you're networking, if you're talking, and by networking, I really just mean having conversations with people about work or jobs. Doesn't have to be like an official networking event. But whenever you're talking to people, you can not only ask them what they do for a living or what do they do for work, but how do they do it? So you'll find if you switch that conversation a little bit and ask like, oh, so what do you do? And oh, is that flexible? Do you ever get to work from home? Or how do you do that? You'll find the type of information you're looking for, which is where do I find flexible jobs? And be able to find from real people how they actually got that work, what company do they work for, and all that good information. So asking people how they work is just as important as asking what they do. And then also just putting it out there to your friends, your family, your neighbors, your professional network. Basically, if you're looking for work, make it known to people. And of course, if you're already employed, that can be a little bit tricky. You want to be careful about who you're telling if you don't want your current employer to find out that you're looking for new work. But whenever possible, bring people into the process. I think sometimes when we're looking for a job, we're a little bit embarrassed, or we just feel kind of like we're not ready to talk to people about this. It's not something we really want to share out there. You just kind of want to get the job, and then you start telling people, oh, I got a new job. Isn't that great? But bringing people into the process can really help you uncover opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise know about. So. Now, when you're online, there are some really good rules for keywords that you should use to search. And this goes for really any job board that you're on. So there's a couple keywords you really want to avoid when you're looking for remote work or telecommuting work. And those are work from home and work at home. And specifically, I mean job listings that use that language. A lot of times they're used by scammers. So scammers will actually use those phrases more often than any other type of phrase to describe that way of working, because they know when people are searching for a job that lets them work from home, they're typically going to search for work from home or work at home. So if you avoid using those phrases, you'll avoid a lot of the scams that are out there. And I'll talk a little bit more about scams in some coming slides. But there are some really good phrases to use that will help you pinpoint legitimate opportunities. And these are used mostly by real companies offering real work from home jobs. So telecommute job, virtual job, remote job, those are typically the top three that we see companies using. And each company likes to use a different phrase or a different version. So you have to kind of search for all of them and then see what's being used in your industry. And there's a bunch of other ones too: distributed team, home-based, open nationwide. There's lots of different ones out there. There's also a lot of different ways to describe freelance or gig work. So I've got that column in the middle. And then flexible hours, again, many different ways to describe it. So what I would recommend is, depending on the type of flexibility that you're interested in, choosing these different words and searching for all of them at first, just to see what comes up, because you'll find that some are much more beneficial for your search than others. So let's say you're looking for a telecommute job and you find 150 listings in your career field that match that, but then you search for home shored and you find 2. Probably better to spend your time using telecommute job than home shore. And you might want to check it every now and then, but just to see where the bulk of the job listings are coming up, it's a good idea to try them all at first and get a sense of what's being used.
I've never seen distributed team. That's new.
Yeah, distributed team and location agnostic I saw one time, but I wanted to include it because I thought it was so interesting.
Right, yeah, those are definitely two that I haven't seen. So
yeah. They get creative, which I don't know if that's very helpful if they're looking for people who want to work that way. It's like, well, just use the phrase that a lot of people are using so people can find your job. But yeah, just in case, you never know what you might find if you search for that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about company research, because you can't just search for jobs, you also have to search for companies too. So the FlexJobs blog is a free, publicly available piece of our site, so anybody can use this. We have a whole jobs and companies section that will help you pinpoint companies for flexible jobs. One of the things that we do each year is put out a list of the 100 top companies for remote jobs. And it's exactly what it says. It's the companies that have posted the most remote jobs in the last year. And we always think that they're a really good bet to continue to be posting remote jobs. So that's one really good list. And we do lots of other lists each week. One of them that just came out is the top freelance career fields and top 30 companies hiring for freelance jobs. So just different information like that that can help you pinpoint companies that are offering this type of work and do your job search that way as well. We also have, as I mentioned at the beginning, the guide to the best companies for flexible jobs. It's how you would search those 49,000 companies that we have researched. And so you can search by company name, by location, and by career field. And I find the company name one is particularly helpful. So let's say you are job searching on any website and you come across a company that sounds pretty great. Their listing sounds good. It's kind of exactly the work that you want to do, but it doesn't say if it's flexible or telecommute. If you go to this company guide, you can search for that company by name and you'll see their whole history of posting flexible jobs. So if they've ever posted something flexible in the past, you'll at least be able to see like, okay, they have a track record of posting part-time work or telecommuting work. And you'll be able to understand if you apply to that job, you could potentially ask about that because they have this history of flexible work that you can see. So it's really helpful for just deciphering some of those companies that maybe don't spell it out. But that over the course of our research, we have found that they do offer flexibility. And if there's nothing there, then there's a decent chance that they aren't flexible. So that's good to know too. I would also recommend going directly to companies' career pages because more companies now are starting to actually say that they are offering flexible work. So they might have a section of their work, their website dedicated to work-life balance. They might actually have our remote workforce section and have highlighted employees that are working from home or something like that. So the company careers page is really good to just figure out if they do offer flexibility, even if it's not in their job listings. And then also when you're thinking of companies that you might want to apply for, think of basically any company that you've ever interacted with in your life where you've had a positive experience. So former customers that you maybe used to work with at a different company that you've worked for, vendors, business partners, and just any similar types of companies related to your former employers. And then also just the products and services you use on a daily basis that make a positive impact. Because it adds to your list of companies to research, and you never know what you might find when you get into researching them. And you already have a positive experience with that company, which you can use when you're writing your cover letters or going on a job interview. You can say, your company has already impacted my life in this way, or, I've known your company since 10 years ago when I started using this product, or whatever it might be. You've got this kind of extra connection to the company. And that can always be nice just to break in and actually, be memorable for the people who are reading your resumes and your cover letters and things like that. And if you have a positive experience with a company, you already know something about that company, that they make people feel good, or they do good things for the world, or whatever it might be, versus a company that you don't know anything about. So it's always nice to kind of start on that positive note, I think. Okay, so a little bit about avoiding job scams to go a little bit deeper than just the keywords. So we know to avoid work from home and work at home. And I should say that when you're reading articles online about work from home jobs, or talking to friends about working from home, like the phrase is not necessarily as important there. It's only in the job listings itself when you're searching for those types of jobs that we really say that that's a red flag and something you should want to avoid. So if you're just reading an article about a company that lets people work from home, it's not, oh no, they use the phrase work from home, they must be a scam. It's just in those job listings that we don't like to see that. So there's a lot of other warning signs that something might be a scam. And each one of these is just one sign that's telling you to slow down and do some more research. And the more signs that pop up, or the more you're starting to feel a little bit funny about a company or a job, the more likely you're dealing with a scam. So each one of these individually doesn't necessarily mean you have found a scam and you should run. Sometimes these things just happen to legitimate companies. So something might be if a company name or an email address isn't immediately available on the job listing. So if it's no company name and they use a generic email like a Gmail or a Ymail, that could be a sign of a scam. If there's a really vague job description or no job description at all, and they spend time talking about the benefits of the job and how much you'll make or how easy it will be, that's a good warning sign as well. If they conduct an interview over instant messenger or IM, that's a warning sign. There are some companies that have started to do that. So in my time at FlexJobs, I know of, I think, 5 companies that actually do instant messenger interviews that are legitimate companies. But the vast majority of times that I've heard of instant messenger interviews being used, it was by scammers. So it's, again, one of those things to just pay attention to. If you are offered a job immediately, that's probably a scam. Almost every legitimate flexible job out there will at least want to do some kind of interview with you, whether it's a phone interview or a video interview. They'll put you through some kind of application process to really make sure that you're the person they want to hire. So if you're offered a job instantly, like if someone contacts you on LinkedIn out of the blue and says, I found your profile and you look great for this job, do you want it? Huge red flag. Legitimate companies still want to talk to you before they actually hire you. And then if you're urged to accept a job immediately, if you're not given the ability to give 2 weeks notice to your current employer if you're employed, or to even, take a couple days or a day to think about it or to talk to your spouse or whatever it might be, that's a big red flag. And the one that we've seen that's kind of the most sophisticated is this thing we call copycat companies. So it's a company that will take a real company, a well-known company. It will take their name, their logo, their website design, the language on their website, and it will create a fake website that says it's this real company, but it's not. And the only way to really tell is to look at the web address or the URL and see if it's the real company's web address. So I have an example up here. GE is one of the companies that has had this scam happen to them. It's happened to Google, CNBC, well-known companies where you go, oh, they're offering this job. I would love to work for them. It's an established company. I get to work from home. And unfortunately, it's usually a scam job. So the big thing is the web address, as I said, and you can kind of compare and open up a fresh browser and find the real company's web address and then look at the two of them and think, okay, are they the same? Are they different somehow? And it can be very small differences, but you really have to pay attention. Like the example that I have up here, gecareers.com versus ge.com/careers. It seems like a small difference, but it means you're on a completely different page and are likely dealing with a copycat scammer. The biggest thing I can say is to trust your instincts. So every time I've talked to somebody who's come across a job scam or actually been victim of a job scam, they will say that at some point in the process that things did not seem right to them. So either the recruiter was acting a little bit funny, or the job listing had lots of grammatical errors and misspellings. There was just something that they gave them pause. It made them stop and wonder for a minute, but they pushed past that because they really wanted to get hired. Job searching, most people will say, is not fun. It's not something that you want to prolong if you don't have to. And so you might feel that urge to push past it, but really trust that instinct. It only takes a few minutes to do some extra research to figure out if what you're dealing with is real or is fake. And I'll show you on the next slide what that research can look like. It's very simple. So the first thing you can do is, for any company or job that gives you that feeling where you're seeing some red flags and you're just wondering, is this real? You can open up a new browser on your computer and then search for that company's name or the job title and the keyword scam. And you can actually just see what comes back. It's very simple. Is it guaranteed to find every single scam out there? No. But for the vast majority of them, if somebody's been scammed, they've reported it online. So you might find news articles that are warning people about the scam. You might find something from the Better Business Bureau, or the FBI actually has started doing this with a lot of scams, especially scams that involve government-related things. And so just doing this simple search can bring back all sorts of results warning you that, yes, this might be a scam, and you might want to just search elsewhere, find a new listing, and walk away from this one. The second thing you can do is, for any company where you think you might be dealing with a copycat company, open up a new browser and search for that company's name and the word careers, and then compare that real careers page that you've just found with the one that you were questioning, the one that you thought maybe was a scam, and see if the URLs, those web addresses, are the same or if they're different. And that'll give you a really good indicator whether you're on the real site or you're on a scam site. So a couple minutes of searching can save you a ton of time and grief. We also have a whole section on the FlexJobs blog about avoiding job scams. And every time we hear of a new one, we post a blog about it. We'll get very specific and do screenshots and stuff like that. So you can also go to the FlexJobs blog and look for avoiding scams and see all the new fun stuff that's out there. But hopefully this gives you some parameters for when you're searching of what to avoid, what to be wary of, so you can stay on the track for legitimate work from home and flexible jobs. Okay, a couple more things to talk about, and then we can open it up for questions. I want to talk about actually putting yourself out there for flexible jobs. How do you position yourself? How do you put yourself out there as somebody who is a professional who's not only qualified for the job itself, but who's qualified to do it in a flexible capacity. So there's a couple things to consider: skills that you might already have, and then skills that you can easily build. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is skills you might already have. The good news is you may have some of the most in-demand skills for remote and flexible jobs already. And so I've listed those here. These are the skills that employers tell us they always look for when they're hiring people for flexible jobs. So communication skills, this is number one all the time. Just like I said, everybody says that they want to work from home. That's their number one type of flexibility. Well, employers who offer those types of jobs, their number one skill that they're looking for are communication skills. Because so much of the communicating that you're going to be doing is writing and verbally. There's no body language, unless you're on video like this, and you can see a little bit of it. But you really have to be a good communicator. Time management, task management, the ability to focus and get your work done. That's a big one. Proactive questions, being able to speak up for yourself, ask questions when you're unsure or you need more information, or to volunteer ideas, or to just be a part of the conversation, really being a proactive communicator instead of waiting for people to come to you and start conversations. And then being comfortable with technology is a big one. You don't have to be super tech savvy. I'm definitely not. But when you have an error pop up on your computer, knowing those first couple steps that you should take is what we're talking about here. So if your internet goes out, what do? You restart the router, you check your neighborhood to see if any of your neighbors still have their internet. You know, there's steps that you can take to figure out what is the root cause of this and how might I fix it. So things like that, just basic troubleshooting. And then having a growth mindset. This one's a little bit different than the other ones because it's really just how you approach your work and how you approach being an employee or a freelancer. Always being open to learning new things, because especially in a flexible environment, this is growing so much still that employers are always trying to figure out how to run their remote and flexible teams well. So they're trying new tools, they're trying new ways of working, and they want to make sure that you're open to trying those new things with them. And then being familiar with remote communication tools, which we will talk about on the next slide. So these are the skills that you can really easily build. And this is kind of like a homework page for after this presentation. You can go out and do a little bit of homework. When we ask employers, how do you communicate with your flexible workers? These are the top communication tools that they tell us they use. So you can see there's 4 main categories: instant messenger or IM, video conferencing, file sharing, and virtual office environments. So for example, we're on Zoom today. This is a good example of a platform that an employer might use. It wasn't in the top 4, but I believe it was like number 5 or 6. So Zoom is a good one to know too. What I would recommend is for anything that you're unfamiliar with on this list, to go to those platforms. It could be Slack or Google Drive. Look for their free versions or their free trials and then start using them. There's always a free version for these things, or at least a free trial, like a 1-week trial or a 2-week trial. Enough time for you to become at least familiar with them. You don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to be an intermediate user, but just understanding the basics of how they work, what they're set up to do. Try asking friends or family, or if you have kids who are fairly tech savvy, you could ask for their help too, just to have somebody to communicate with on these platforms. But you can get used to them and then add them to your resumes and your LinkedIn profile, and just show employers that you understand the tools that you might be expected to use and you're already familiar with them, and it's not something they have to worry about with you. And like I said, we're just becoming familiar. We're not becoming intermediate or expert users. It's really just that cursory knowledge, you get it, and then you can add it to your resume. Speaking of resumes for flexible jobs, if you have previous flexible work experience, if you've ever worked from home, if you've ever had a flexible schedule, if you've ever been a freelancer, that should be indicated on your resume, especially when you're applying for those particular types of flexible jobs. So if you've been a freelancer and you're going for freelance projects, you want to make sure that that is spelled out on your resume. And especially remote work too. When employers are hiring for remote jobs, they really look for either remote experience or the skills that it takes to work remotely. So those are things you really want to splash all across your resume, make them very obvious. And I'll show you how to do that in a couple different ways on the next slide. If you don't have previous flexible work experience, you should focus on those skills that I had on a, excuse me, a couple of slides ago. So communication skills, time and task management, all of those types of things should be very obvious on your resume. And you could even say something like, you know, skills that could, excuse me, can I get a little sip of water here? Hold on. Thank you. You know, skills that could be used for effective flexible work, and make it very clear to employers that you understand what it takes and you've got those skills. So this next slide, it shows there's 3 different resume examples here, and how you could actually add skills or experience to your resume. The first one, this person had a remote position. So they added the information on that line on your resume where you've got your job title, your company name, the dates that you worked there, and they have remote position right on there. And I would say whenever you're sending it out to an employer, you have to match their language. So if they talk about it's a telecommuting job, then you want to have telecommute position on your resume. If they say it's a remote job, put remote on your resume. You're going to have to tailor your resume a little bit to each job, but that is the best way to get your resume picked for an interview. So it's worth that extra time. The next one in the technology skills section. So this is a section that you should have on your resume if you're going for flexible work. This is where you can put all of those different programs that you're going to go out and learn a little bit about, and any previous, you know, programs that you already know that would be good for flexible or remote jobs. Have that in this section. So this person has tools used for effective remote work. They've got it spelled out here. Here's what I know that could help me in this remote position. And they have video conferencing, but then they also list the brand names too. So that's not just video conferencing, they've got the type of program that they have listed. So that's always nice, just to give employers both. And then they also have this nice line, new tools adopted on a regular basis. And that goes to that growth mindset skill that employers are looking for, that you're comfortable looking and looking at and using new skills like technology skills, for example. And the last one, this person, it's the summary at the top of their resume, which I would recommend everybody have some kind of profile or summary that gives your absolute best experiences and skills for that one job that you're applying for. And in there, you can put, if you have experience working remotely or freelancing, exactly what you have. So this person has 6 years experience working remotely. They also have "and in flexible office environments." I love that phrase because it's all encompassing. So if you worked from home occasionally, maybe when your kids were homesick or there was a snow day and you couldn't get to the office, whatever it might be, if you have occasional flexible or remote work, flexible office environments is one of those phrases that's kind of a catch-all. And it can really accurately describe the casual policy that a lot of employers have, where you maybe were not sanctioned to officially work from home all the time, but you were able to do it whenever you kind of needed to. Which also reminds me, what counts as flexible work experience? Anything, really anything. It can be volunteer experience. It can be occasional flexible work. It can be 100% flexible all the time work. The whole spectrum counts. If you were able to work in a flexible way where you were effective and productive and you can talk about that in a job interview, that counts as flexible work. So whenever I see someone discounting their volunteer experience, the fact that they did some part-time work or they took projects home with them at night or on the weekends, or they started their own blog and they've been adding to it and it's not a paid thing, but it's a project they've been working on, that all counts. If you're doing something in a flexible way and you're comfortable talking about it in a job interview, that's the key piece. You think there's enough there that you could talk about it, then it counts. You should use that as flexible work experience. Okay, I talked about this a little bit before, but I just wanted to reiterate, when you're networking, and really it's just whenever you're talking about work with anybody, and the fact that you're looking for a job, if you shift the conversation, not just from what people do, but to how they do it, you'll get into that conversation about flexible work options and whether people that you're talking to have them, how they got them, and what they would recommend for you if you're looking for that sort of thing too. So always ask people not just what they do, but how they do it. Okay, I also wanted to include this because we do have a lot of military spouses who come to FlexJobs looking for the same sort of things that you all are looking for. And these were just a couple of the success stories that we've seen, people who've gotten jobs and the advice that they wanted to give other job seekers about what worked for them, or what they should expect. So the first one, I love this because there's so much advice here wrapped into like a couple sentences. So don't stop trying, don't get lazy. And, you get into a job search, it takes a long time and you sometimes just feel like giving up. But this person really recommends not doing that. Sell yourself well, create a custom cover letter for each position that tells the hiring manager exactly why you are the best pick for their open position. So really draw clear lines from what you have to offer to what that employer needs. And then in the tailored resume, as I mentioned before, tailored resume to match what the job is and why you are the best person for that job. This person also recommends company research, which is very important, not just to find companies that you can actually work for, but once you're interviewing and all that sort of stuff to find information to know about that company and to talk about. And then the next one over on the right in purple, this is a good reminder that job searching takes time, even for flexible and remote work. I think sometimes people think that freelance or part-time jobs in particular are because they're either fewer hours or they're kind of project-based work that you'll get that work faster. And it's not always the case. Sometimes it still takes a good amount of time to secure a flexible job. So take your time, know that it's going to take a while, and just put your best effort out there every day when you're doing it. And then don't focus on finding a position in an industry that you've always been working in. This is sort of that expand your horizons advice. Venture out and explore positions you have always wanted to apply for, but maybe you haven't. Or just research brand new things that you didn't even know existed and you think, oh, that's kind of cool and I feel like I could do it. Try it. There's no harm in applying. So don't stick to that one thing that you think you can do or that you should do or you've always done. Branch out a little bit, see what else is out there for you. Okay, just a couple notes. We've talked about these free resources on FlexJobs, so I don't really have to go into them too much more, but they're there for you and they're open to the public. And just a rundown of the action steps that people can take. So first of all, thinking about the type of flexibility that you want that would really be ideal for you. And then researching your career field and other types of work to figure out what's being offered, what you might find. And then figuring out your best flex-friendly skills and experiences so that you can start figuring out how to update your resume, your LinkedIn profile. Also sign up for free versions of communication tools to test them out and be able to add things to your resume. And update your application materials and your online profiles. That's kind of a big thing. You want LinkedIn and anywhere else that you're active online in a professional capacity to match, what you're applying for and the resumes that you're putting out there. You just want to update everything all at the same time so that it's all consistent, so that you're consistent across these different things. And then start reaching out to your network, to your friends, your family, anybody who might be able to help you in your job search, and apply for flexible jobs. That's kind of the big hurdle. I think a lot of us get stuck in preparing and planning and making sure everything is just right. And sometimes you have to start somewhere, so apply. Oftentimes I'll tell people to find a job that they're like, oh, this could be kind of nice, and apply to that one versus the one that they're absolutely gung-ho to apply for right away. Because you get kind of the jitters and grammatical errors on your resume and all those little things out of the way with a lower pressure position. And then, you can start applying for the ones that you're really just, absolutely interested in. But you have to start somewhere. So just start applying. And I think, yeah, that's the last one. Oh yeah, so here's the promo code for anybody on the call today. If you wanted to sign up for FlexJobs, you can use that for 30% off any membership. It never expires, so you can use it anytime. And if you're already a FlexJobs member, like you signed up last week and now you're going, oh, but there's this promo code, you can retroactively have it applied to your account. You just contact our client services team, tell them you were on this webinar, and they can apply it for you. That's no problem. Happy to take questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Brie. We do have some questions. One of the questions is about actually paying for, like if a job description says if you pay us like $50 for the, for whatever, it could be sort of a background check or something like that. I mean, is that a legitimate position or is that pretty much probably a scam?
It's usually a scam. So we see those a lot where they ask you for a small investment to get the job, or to get a workbook that teaches you how to work from home, or some kind of software that you need to use. All of those tend to be scams. Some companies will ask you to pay for your own background check. That's the only one that we've found that is sometimes associated with a legitimate company. I would say you still want to do that research on that company and that job to see if anywhere online people are talking about it as a scam. And you can also search FlexJobs for that. But most of the time, if you're being asked to invest some kind of money up front, it's probably a scam.
Okay. And then another question is, are there job fairs for FlexJobs?
Oh, I love this question. And I don't think there are, but it is something we've actually been talking about at FlexJobs. So there may be job fairs in the future, but I don't know of any off the top of my head right now. No.
Okay. And does FlexJobs go to like regular job fairs at all?
We don't actually. We're just completely virtual. Yep. We exist on the internet.
And then I have a question about cost for membership, FlexJobs.
Oh yeah, I should have put that on the slide. So we do 1 month, 3 month, and 1 year membership levels. So you can try it out at whatever level you'd like. The 1 month is $14.95, and that's before the 30% discount. 3 months is $29.95 normally, and the 1 year is $49.95 normally. So, and then that would be 30% off of any of those levels.
And just to reiterate, FlexJobs already does the vetting of the companies that it will put on its job boards. So you wouldn't have to worry about these particular scams that we're talking about.
Yep, exactly. We guarantee no scams. We also have a satisfaction guarantee. So we don't even ask for the reason. If for whatever reason you decide FlexJobs wasn't the right investment for you or the right thing for your job search, you can just ask for your money back and we'll give it back. It's really simple.
Fantastic. I have another question about expectations on flexible workers in terms of availability, nights, weekends, holidays. Basically, are there working hours for flexible jobs?
Yes. So for a lot of flexible jobs, there are set hours. And this is really a job by job difference. So you're going to want to make sure you ask or do some research before the interview or ask during the interview. But a lot of flexible jobs, especially work from home jobs, will have set hours. So you would still be working, 9 to 5, but you're doing it from home. Other times they have flexible schedules. So you're supposed to work 8 hours a day, but you can kind of choose which 8 hours each day you want to work. Some are completely flexible where it's, I forget the name of like the phrase used to describe it, but it's kind of like get your work done in however long it takes you sorts of environments. And then there are alternative schedules too. So some jobs might have you working weekends and nights, but that would be an upfront arrangement. It wouldn't be something they spring on you like, oh yeah, we expect you to work like 24 hours a day here. It's all kind of set with each job. So it's something definitely to ask about.
Awesome. Another question is, as far as like a FlexJobs account, can more than one person use it?
No, it's a little bit tricky. So because you have your own resume profile as part of the account. So if you have 2 people using it, you would have you can make more than one resume profile, but they'd be so distinctly different that employers would get really confused. Like, who is this person applying for my jobs? So no, we definitely don't recommend sharing an account.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because if you are 2 people using one account, you only have one resume out there.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. Yes. Another question, are there jobs on FlexJobs that are not otherwise available on an individual company's website?
There are some. So the way the jobs on FlexJobs work is there's a couple different ways they get there. The first is that employers come directly to FlexJobs to post their flexible jobs, and that's when those types of jobs might come in. So a job that isn't available elsewhere, the employer would post directly to FlexJobs. And then we also have a team of job researchers who go out onto hundreds of other job boards, company websites, all sorts of places to find flexible work and screen everything and post it to FlexJobs. So and it's denoted on FlexJobs. You can tell which way a job came into the site, so you'll always know. But those are the 2 main ways. So there are some jobs that are posted to FlexJobs that you can't find elsewhere. I would say the majority you probably could find elsewhere, but you might spend a lot of time doing all the research for that.
Right. So they're just kind of all, they're all corralled into one spot.
Yep.
So looking all over. Got it. I'm going to try something really fast. I have Roxanne over here who has her hand up. So we're going to try it. Roxanne? Hold on 1 second. We're going to see if we can get her. Oh, well, maybe. Zoom changes their software platform and does updates. Oh, there's Roxanne. Roxanne, do you have a question for Brie? No, maybe not. All right. So we tried it. Didn't work. We gave it a go. I think that is about it. Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold on. Can you use the 30% discount twice? Like if you used it last year, can you use it again this year?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I would ask if you email feedback at flexjobs.com. So feedback at flexjobs.com, and just say you were a member last year. If you don't have your current membership, and that you attended this webinar again and you got this code again, and ask them if you can use it. I actually have no idea. Sorry, I don't know that answer.
That was a great question.
That was a good question. You stumped me.
Here's kind of it's a little off-beat question, but if you're working flexible, remotely or virtually and your internet goes down, is it acceptable to recommend to go to an alternate location like a Starbucks or a library? How do employers view that?
Yeah, it depends on the employer. So some employers require you to be at your home office, based in your home office. This comes up with a lot of customer service jobs because they want to make sure you have that quiet space to work from, that you're hardwired to the internet instead of using Wi-Fi. So they have some requirements around that. But for other jobs, writing jobs, project management jobs, marketing jobs, all over the place, you can kind of work from anywhere. It just depends on if the employer has a preference. But for a lot of remote workers, that comes into play. The internet goes down, so you go to Starbucks, you go to the local library. So it's just something to talk about with each employer. You know, what are their expectations? Is it okay if you work from those places? A lot of employers actually encourage that because it gets you out of your house, around other people. It can be a little isolating if you're working from home constantly.
Very much so.
Getting out there can actually be a good thing. But I do recommend, if you're a remote worker, to have a list of at least a couple places where you could go if your internet goes out, because it happens a lot when you're home all day. Sometimes the internet just disappears and you don't know what happened to it. So that's a good thing to have in mind. It's just, where else could you go?
Awesome. I know before we talked about, you had some things on there about like finding software packages or free internet stuff. So if you don't have any experience with that and you download the free week trial and you start playing around in it, like Dropbox is one, or Google, you can get a Google Drive with your email, and then you start playing with it. How do you put that on a resume when you're really a beginner, but you know about it and you kind of feel comfortable with it, but you don't consider yourself a pro?
Yeah, you can just literally put the phrase "familiar with" and then list the names of the things. I think it's one of those things where employers understand that familiar with just means like you know it, you understand it okay, you've used it a little bit, but you're not an expert. You're not, a pro user of. When you say proficient in, that's a little bit different. That's where they expect you to know your stuff. So
yeah, I think that would be one of the probably one of the main questions going forward, especially when you're filling out that resume. You're like, well, I kind of like, I'm comfortable with this and I know how to use it, but I'm not a pro. If something goes wrong, I can't.
Exactly. Yeah, familiar with is a good way to describe that.
Perfect. And are there any more questions? I see one question for where I can find the link to the webinar afterwards, and that will be located on the Blue Star Family's YouTube channel, and it will also be on the webpage, and it will also be on our Facebook page. So if there are no more questions, anyone else? Give a few seconds to catch up. There's a little lag sometimes. All right, it looks like we're done. Well, Brie, I want to thank you again so much for coming and talking to us this afternoon. Great presentation from Penny.
Thanks, Penny.
this is probably one of the webinars that we do as far as like flexible virtual work that we get the most questions about, especially at Blue Star Families with military spouses. If
Awesome.
anyone, hold on. Oh, sorry. Nope. There, I just got thank yous and great information, which thank you again, Brie.
Oh, you're very welcome.
If anyone wants to get a hold of me, I can be reached at Liz Jones or L Jones at bluestarfam.org. And if you have questions for Brie, all that information will be in the description when this video is posted. Or Brie, do you want to spell out your Twitter or?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, Brie Reynolds or Brie W. Reynolds. And then you can also feel free to email me. It's brie@flexjobs.com. With the caveat that I will be going on maternity leave very soon. So if I don't respond, that could be why.
I was wondering about that. I was like, oh, I should say her email address, but then I don't know if you're going to be on maternity leave. So.
But for the next week or so, you might be able to get me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Brie, and thank you to FlexJobs.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.